Judge, we are here today because these two gentlemen entered our diner and decided to dine and dash. And once we decided we wanted to prosecute, they decided to retaliate by making defamatory statements about our establishment. We lost revenue, we lost reputation. I do have the receipts for the loss of our revenue as well as the defamatory statements.
All right, thank you for that.
Your Honor, this is my sister. We run a small 24-hour diner that we inherited from our uncle. We both relocated out of state after he died to take over the business. Initially, we didn't know the locals or usual patrons, but we did know that before Uncle Pete had a heart attack and died, he complained that there had been a serious uptake in loss caused by people who dined and dashed. As new business owners, we wanted to immediately set the tone and let people know that if they ate at our restaurant and did not pay, they would be prosecuted. One night, these two came in, ate, and literally ran out without paying. We were aware that the diner was heavily patronized by local police officers, but these two were not in uniform, and we did not know that they were officers. Once we became aware of their identities, we reached out for payment because that is part of the reason my uncle was sick. He was always struggling to make ends meet and stressed about it, to the point it killed him. So essential personnel or not, we demanded payment, especially because they never came back to close the ticket, which is frankly unprofessional.
Okay. Ralph V., did you eat at the diner?
Yes.
Did you run out?
Can I give a little background that I think might help explain the situation?
Sure.
Judge, we were narcotics detectives. About a year prior to this Dine and Dash incident, dispatch received a 911 call, frantic, from a woman that said she was with her friend who had taken heroin intravenously and had overdosed. When she was interviewed, the friend stated she was with the decedent when the decedent purchased the heroin that she OD'd on. She then provided us with an address for the house where she purchased the heroin and provided us with the name of the dealer who sold them the heroin. Okay. We conducted a search on the tax assessor's website, and we found the name of the homeowner for that house. We then conducted a search on the named dealer, and we found he was the grandson of the homeowner. Because all this information lined up, we conducted a further investigation, and then he got a tip from CI, which confirmed the identity of the named dealer as well as the sale of heroin from that house. Detectives then set up surveillance on the house. There was a lot of traffic in and out. There was individuals at all times of the day, and they would stay there for a few minutes and leave. That is common trap house behavior. After about a month of sitting on the house, we sent an undercover to make a purchase from the house. The undercover successfully made a purchase from that house from that dealer. So the night of the Dine and Dash incident, the detective unit was getting ready to execute a search warrant on the location for evidence of narcotics distribution. We were not part of the team, nor were we part of the search. We were not on the clock. We sat at the diner because we were kind of an unofficial backup in case something happened during the execution of the search warrant, and because the diner was about a block or so from the trap house. Because we're in an official capacity, we're not on the clock, we decided to eat and order food. As we were eating, we got a call of shots fired, multiple officers were down, and we just booked it out of there.
Okay. Jake Halmore, were you there too?
Yes.
Okay. And both of you ordered food?
Yes, Judge.
Did anybody pay?
Judge, when I received the call, when the call came through that multiple officers were down, the only thing on my mind was aiding fellow officers. So I didn't pay, but it wasn't intentional. And within hours, I was sick as a dog. Sick for 7 days, fully. Vomiting, diarrhea. And, after I came back from work, normally I would just chalk it up to bad luck, let it go. But I came back to work after those 7 days and find a notice of hearing that they are trying to prosecute us for theft. So I, as procedure would indicate, I went to my Sarge, and as it turns out, my Sarge was also out sick for 2 days, vomiting, diarrhea, same thing. Sorry, Sarge. So we put 2 and 2 together that maybe it was the food, and Sarge sent out an email to all the divisions just notifying them of the incident.
Sergeant, did he report the incident to you?
Yes, he did.
And were both detectives out sick?
Yes.
Okay. Did you send out a precinct-wide email about this?
Your Honor, part of my job is to determine a course of action when lives are at stake. And every year, thousands of Americans die from foodborne illnesses. And in this case, you have 2 of my detectives who went to this restaurant and ate dinner and became severely ill. And then on top of that, you have the 2 business owners who have now prosecuted the detectives. So yes, in order for officer safety and to prevent further frivolous claims such as witness intimidation and evidence tampering, I did issue a directive to the entire department asking them to avoid this particular restaurant until the prosecution of the detectives were over, until the prosecution of the theft claim was finished.
Okay. And Sergeant, if you recall, what was like your rate of officer compliance with this directive?
I recall it to be about 80% compliant. There were no further complaints beyond that levied against the detectives, and it ended there.
No, it didn't.
It didn't end there?
No, because here they are again suing us for food
Well, now hold
poisoning.
on. We would have left it there, but now you're suing us for defamation. So you yet again are going to drag us before another judge. Yeah, we're going to present our claims too.
Based on the nature of these charges, the underlying email, I'd like an opportunity to evaluate it. I'd also like to evaluate your proof of lost wages and also to evaluate the defamation claims. This court will be in recess for 45 minutes. Thank you. I'm going to work from my notes because there's a lot, a lot going on here. Ladies, you're suing for defamation, right? So for defamation, you need a false statement, okay? Has to be publicized to a third party, and you've got to have some type of harm, some type of damages. To prove a false statement and publication, you provided me with a social media post, right? Where this detective is laying in bed saying he's super sick, and the caption said, "I'll never eat there again." Okay, in the comments you point out, someone asked, "Well, where'd you get the food?" And he names your restaurant and @ your restaurant. Okay, here's the only thing. While I do understand that you may have suffered harm behind it, there was actually nothing false about that statement, okay? He actually was sick, right? And when someone asked him, where is it that he wouldn't be eating from again, he simply said it was your restaurant. He actually didn't even claim that he had food poisoning from your restaurant. He was just in bed sick, said not eating there again. Somebody says where, he says your restaurant, okay? So he's free to say that, and truth is always going to be a defense, okay? He had, in fact, eaten your restaurant, so he could very well go ahead and say that he didn't want to eat there again. So for the damages, you provided bank statements, and I appreciate that, right? Which showed that you made more money in the month prior to the Dine and Dash incident than you made after the Dine and Dash incident, right? So here, even if we had the false statement in the publication, this wouldn't prove that your loss or the change in your sales trend occurred because of something that these detectives said about you, right? As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, from the testimony presented here today in court, it sounds like it could possibly be because the sergeant sent a directive for other officers to avoid the diner because you guys were prosecuting them and the sergeant didn't want to risk, claims of tampering or witness intimidation. And I understood the sergeant to say that she had about an 80% compliance rate. So yes, 80% of the precincts complied, and that could very well be the reason why you suffered that decline in business, as well as a number of other factors. But the simple fact that there are so many potential reasons, that's just not going to carry the day in this instance. So unfortunately, and I am sorry, I do understand you guys have taken on a lot with your uncle's restaurant, and you just want everyone to pay, and I do understand, but unfortunately, your claim for defamation is going to have to fail, okay, on those grounds. Now, gentlemen, now, I do understand you all are alleging food poisoning, okay? You ate, you fell ill, you ate, you fell ill. But when I reviewed the previous case file, right, because I saw the petition where she tried to get a warrant out for you guys to prosecute you for theft, even though it was later dismissed, I did see an attachment was included the menu from the restaurant. I suppose it was to show the prices of the items and then the tickets, okay? Now, it looks like your ticket, you ordered, eggs, bacon, grits, but your egg preparation was sunny side up. And on the menu, there's that standard warning language, like, hey, you run the risk of, foodborne illness when you have food that's undercooked, including, eggs, poultry, meat. So unfortunately, this is a situation where this court's gonna have to find that you assume that risk when you ordered your eggs at that temperature. Consuming raw food can lead to poisoning. And so I cannot grant you recovery in this instance for the food poisoning, okay? Now, detective, for you, in your situation, I do see, look, you brought in your medical records for me to examine. Your medical records, they show, hey, listen, you were treated for, vomiting, diarrhea, okay? It looks like you went to the hospital after the Dine and Dash incident. I do see that. But just because you experienced these symptoms after you ate at the restaurant doesn't mean you experience these symptoms because you ate at the restaurant. And that's what's not connected in the medical records, right? The doctor treated your symptoms. The doctor didn't make a formal diagnosis. There's no etiology. There's no finding of what caused it. He simply treated the symptoms that you were experiencing. And also, I see where you went for a follow-up. So in the discharge, they told you to go for a follow-up. And in your records from your initial visit, it says you became sick within an hour of eating at the diner. And in your follow-up, it indicated that you were better the very next day. Both the onset of your symptoms and the recovery period are kind of atypical for traditional food poisoning. Usually it takes at least about 6 hours and usually runs maybe like 4 to 7 days. Here you were sick within an hour. That was too fast. There was like another cause, and you recovered the next day. That was also, thankfully, rapid, but a little bit too rapid. And so because, like I said, you have kind of like that atypical situation, it doesn't quite fit the mold, and additionally, the medical records don't tie your illness, your symptoms to food poisoning, then I'm gonna also have to deny your claim as well. So, this is a case where I guess no one's happy, but it is fair. Thank you.
Would you like to appear on social media to our court? DM us today.